Hi everyone, a 5-minute challenge. My challenge is, are you individually, corporately, dealing with the issues that are in your control? You see, COVID has thrown up a lot of issues, and some of them are out of our control. We can only meet in groups of 6. We can't control that. We need to socially distance. Though we can violate that, it's unwise to do so. We need to wash our hands regularly. We need to wear masks. Those things, in a sense, have been imposed on us, but imposed on us for our own good. But there are lots of things that are in my control. And I know if I or we as church are going to move forward, some of those issues have to be dealt with. See, all of us have been affected by COVID. It's given us baggage. There's lots of baggage that people are carrying that they weren't carrying 6 months ago. Fear of illness, fear of finance. I know people who've been affected by COVID that have lost siblings. I know people that have lost their jobs. And for some, it's just the fear of uncertainty. Don't know what the future holds. Can't plan ahead. And for some who are control freaks, not to be able to plan ahead is very difficult. Apparently, the incidence of anxiety and depression has risen by 50% during this period. And sadly, we see so much in terms of numbers of suicides, etc., that are very, very difficult. And it would be nice if this didn't affect the church, but it does. I know Christians, great people, who I never thought would be anxious, but suddenly have changed. They're anxious. Somebody said anxiety is the battle in the mind and depression is the battle in the heart. Well, we've all had to face that. For some, the baggage is loneliness and grief. Isolation has meant that you feel distance. Isolation has meant that nobody's been able to touch you, which for many people is a healing and a wholesome thing. Some people, like me, we're grandparents. We were able to see our grandchildren over the summer. One grandchild we hadn't seen for months, and now with the changes happening and because of the work of his parents, we might not be able to see again this year, who knows? And that has brought sadness and grief. Some people are a bit disappointed with God. God, why is it happening? Why have I lost my job? Why have I lost this relative? Why am I struggling? Why is the whole thing so uncertain? And for some, I think the baggage has become lethargy. I was talking to a friend of mine who leads a church in the States, and he was telling me about his friend who's another pastor, and they started to meet regularly. And so many people said, well, we don't need to now. We've really enjoyed the Sunday mornings. We've got into a rhythm where we stay in, we lie in, we can watch the service in bed, and, why change that? That lethargy will stop us moving forward as church. So how can we deal with it? One is, I think we've got to be honest with ourselves and with God. See, sometimes as Christians, we don't like admitting that we're struggling with fear, we're struggling with anxiety, because we think we shouldn't. And sadly, for some Christians struggling like that, they've got the double whammy of guilt. We've got to be honest with ourselves, but we've got to be honest with God and maybe and probably selected others. I know so many times in my life, people around us have just been there, have helped, have prayed, have helped me see from a different perspective. One thing as well, I think we have to make daily choices. We have to try to find God in our darkness. I might have said this before, but I interviewed someone for a dissertation I was doing on suffering, and his job was to lobby governments on behalf of persecuted leaders. And he sent me an article that he'd written, and in this article, it was a very moving, powerful article, spoke of some of his friends who were imprisoned, some had been martyred. And he said he wrestled with this and he wrestled with prayer, but he got to the stage where he said, I had to accept that the silence of God was not the absence of God. And that's been very important to me. We've got to try to find God in this darkness. We've got to positively give it to God. See, Paul tells us in Philippians, he says, don't be anxious, give it to God. And sometimes we've just got to come and constructively say to God, God, I feel really anxious. Just give me peace. But sometimes too as well, what will lift us out of a lethargy or just the sadness that we're feeling is we need to look for others who we can encourage. And again, I found so often that when I'm struggling with something, when I've had the opportunity to help, encourage and bless others, then that has helped lift me from where I am. So my challenge to you is, are you dealing with the things that only you can deal with God's help and with the church's help? Because as church, we will not move forward effectively until each one of us lays the baggage down that is not part of the next step in the journey. Thank you. Bless you. Bye.